Folks, Dave Shrine here along with Steve Edwards, and once again it's that time for our online Q&A, our online clinic talking about mules and donkeys for the next hour. Steve, how you doing?
Got another day started. It's hot here.
Oh my gosh,
114
is it
degrees.
ever?
Yeah, 114.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
it's very, very hot, and it's one of those deals where you just either decide to stay inside or you just make the conclusion, hey, I'm going to be outside, it's going to be hot, it's going to be sweaty, and that's pretty much how we live out here in Arizona.
Yeah, we just get by. Yeah, not bad at all. Yesterday we was at the lake with some friends, and even being on the lake, it was still hot.
Yeah.
Heart's hot. Heart's hot. You know.
Yep, it's absolutely true. Well, one of the great things is that right now we're both inside, and
Yeah.
that means that we are well equipped to start talking about mules and donkeys. So, first thing that I want to do is I want to welcome everyone who, if this is your first time ever hanging out with us, we're so glad that you're here. We've had so many new folks coming in, spending time with us, talking mules, talking donkeys, asking as many questions as they can. And if that's you, we are so glad that you're here hanging out with us. A lot of folks have been getting that feed talk video, and from that feed talk video they basically said, hey, you know what, I'm going to go in and I'm going to check out what they're doing live. So if you're here, there's three things we ask. The first thing is that you just say hello, let yourself be known, let us know that you're here, let us know that you're hanging out with us. That's the first thing. The second thing is that you ask any and every question that you've got. That's real important to us, because if there's no questions, there's no broadcast. And really, we want to make the most of this time. We want to do as much as we can and get through as much content as we can, so that you can get back out there and you can train. And then the third thing that we ask, and really this is for our Facebook friends, but if you're on YouTube, you can do it as well by sharing the link. We ask that you share the broadcast. And so on Facebook, there's a little link at the very bottom of the feed, and it says share. Just click that. You can share it to your feed, or if you have friends and family that you want to tag, you can go ahead and just tag them, and then they'll see that you were here and hanging out and watching with us, and then they'll hop in and they'll watch the replay, and maybe they'll join us live next week. So, Steve, I want to say hello right here. We've got Muhammad. He's from Qatar, so Muhammad's tuning in again. It's late there for him, so Muhammad, we're glad that you're here. We've got Dan Davis from San Augustine, Texas. He says, I can hear you, I can see you, but I can't hear you. Let's see. Is anybody else having problems hearing us? I'm looking at my feed right here. Eileen says hello from Nebraska. Dina shared the stream, so I'm thinking folks are able to hear us. But if y'all would just take a real quick moment and let me know if it might be Dan's computer that may need to be refreshed, or if it's my computer that might need to be refreshed. Go ahead and take a moment and let me know there. We've got Eileen chiming in. We've got Edie hanging out from New Mexico. Eileen's from Nebraska. Eileen, did you get the email that I sent you about the Doctoring Your Mule DVD? That, I'm so sorry that showed up and there was no disc inside, so I don't know if the USPS, if it broke open and it fell out, or if there was a little bit of issue there with our supplier. But I sent you a link to the actual digital one so you can get to work right away. She goes, hearing well. Carl says hearing well. Judy is from Norco, California. We've got a good group of people
Judy
here today, Steve.
Yep. Yeah, Judy and her husband are some of my favorite people there. It's too bad they live in the left coast.
Well, you know what that means? It means we're just going to have to figure out a way to do a clinic out there.
Yeah, well, we've done that before. I've done a clinic right there in Norco with the Best America by Horseback. But still, yeah, I mean, they're great folks. If anybody at all could put on a clinic, I'm sure Judy could.
Very good, very good. So, Steve, what has the last week been like for you as far as what kind of conversations have you been having? Usually we'll go right into the questions, but I wanted to see what kind of conversations have folks been calling and asking you about.
All right, now here it is. I am in Phoenix with my brother last night. We went to a Christian Bow Hunters Association get-together. And you bring canned food there, and it helps these Christians go and they help kids learn how to fish. They handed out fishing pole to every kid last night. It was really good. But it was kind of funny. Here I was. I didn't have a cowboy hat on. I had my short breeches on. I looked like a city guy, you know, and had my shirt unbuttoned, you know, and a T-shirt underneath. I didn't think anybody recognized me. And I had people coming up saying, "You're Steve Edwards, aren't you?" I said, how'd you know that? They says, "We heard you talk." You know? Yeah, so that was pretty unique. So my brother and I, we spent a little time together last night. Instead of going training last night with the fire department, I spent a little time with my brother, and that was a good deal. But other than that, I got a surprise that next week, everybody's got to show up to see, because it's the thing that we've been working on, Dave. The end result, it's all finished. It's beautiful.
Yep.
Absolutely incredible. We just need to do a little bit of videoing on some things. But next week, folks, I'm going to show you all new, something brand new that we got going.
We
and
do
it's
have
going to
some.
be pretty
We
awesome.
do have some good stuff to talk about, and we're very,
Yes.
very excited to get to doing that. Before we get into that, I just want to acknowledge we're having a couple of issues here with YouTube, and so I'm trying to work out the issues with YouTube right now. I'm working on it. I'm not quite sure if it's going to work. So if you're watching this on Facebook, obviously you're hanging out with us. If you're over on YouTube, I think it's working right now. So go ahead, and if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead, chime in, say hello, and let us know that you're able to see, and let us know that you're able to hear. So, folks, if you've got any questions, go ahead and put them into the comment section there, and we will get to them. The first question that I've got for today, Steve, is about the Surcingle. And so we had someone texting in saying, I got a small mule, and I wanted to know, will the Surcingle that you sell fit my mule? So first and foremost, can you explain what the Surcingle is, what it's meant to do? And then after you explain that, take a few minutes to kind of talk about, how you want to get that Surcingle set up, and if it could be too big or if it could be too small for the animal.
Well, basically, the way I rigged it up, Dave, is it's 3 inches wide, okay, and it's about 2.5 feet long. And then it has rings on it all around it, leather or beta across the top, and wool felt on the inside against the animal. And then it has 2 nylon latigos hanging from a D-ring on each side. And then you can put any size cinch you want. So if you got a big old mule, you put this Surcingle on there, and your tie straps are long enough, put it into a 40-inch cinch, and it's going to fit. You got a small little donkey, you just go ahead and put the Surcingle across it. You don't even have to use a cinch on it. You can just tie off the straps on the bottom, and you're done. So in other words, I can fit something about this big, or something as big around as David from Australian's belly. Haha, Dave, I hope you're there. Yeah.
That's a good one.
So I can put it on draft, or I can put it on small. So it's made up for doing all sizes.
That's good.
Now,
go ahead.
So what it's used for? What it's used for is to help you do your first saddlings, because it's usually the cinch that kind of binds them up and gets them worried, so they can feel that pressure there, and they feel the pressure across the top of their back. They can feel that pressure there, and small is good in the very beginning. The problem is people think they'll put a saddle on there, and by God, they're going to see if he's going to do anything. Well, try something smaller first, folks, like a Surcingle, and it works a lot better. So let's go on. So these rings are in key places, so that I take baling twine, and I put the halter on my donkey, or I put the halter on my mule, and I put baling twine from the bottom of the halter over to the rings on the Surcingle, and then the baling twine is not tight; it's fairly loose, so that as soon as they move, then it becomes tight. But as they're standing there natural, it doesn't become tight. If you make it too tight, you'll break and brace. If they can reach down on the ground and get a bite to eat, it's too loose. So that's the other thing to think about. And the purpose of it is to be able to have some type of pressure on the halter, or some type of pressure on the bit, so that they learn to be bridle wise or learn to be halter wise. And it's inexpensive that way, because if you try to hook it up on your saddle, which you could do, you better stay right there, because if Mr. Donkey decides he's going to roll, or Mr. Mule decides he's had enough, he's going to bang into the side of the corral panel with your brand new saddle. And this way here, less than $70, you got a Surcingle. So the purpose of it is to be able to hold the lines, the pieces of string, the baling twine, so that as my mule moves, as my donkey moves, right, left, as he moves, he feels the bit back and forth. And that's what you want him to feel. You want him to feel that movement there like that. And then pretty soon they start thinking, man, that's kind of uncomfortable. So they drop their head and they tip their nose. When they drop their head and they tip their nose, they start softening up. And what's that happening? You're teaching how to be respectful of the halter. That's one of the biggest problems that we have today out there, folks, is these horses and these mules, you see them, they lead, they're nice and quiet. As long as things are okay, no boogers around, they'll follow along. But all of a sudden, if there's a monster, if they decide they don't want to lead, man, they'll jerk it away from you. But the nice thing about having them be respectful of the halter is when he comes into a problem, you can handle it.
That's good. Very, very helpful. And I think we're actually going to need to update the description on our Surcingle product on the website. That was really, really good. So hopefully that gives, I can't remember the person, I had it in front of me and I don't have it anymore. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of information on how to get that Surcingle to work and the sizing question that you had there as well. Steve, the next question that I had, and this was something that I was thinking through today, I was going through answering a few different questions, just that, little questions that weren't live stream questions. And one of the things that came up was white lines disease. And I really want to put more information together on our website about white lines disease because it seems to be a common thing that comes up over and over and over again. Can you share a little bit about how to spot white line disease, what it is, and then how you treat it?
Dave, I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of smart people out there of doing all kinds of things trying to figure this out. But white lines disease, unfortunately, is a crippling disease. And unfortunately, they don't have any way to fix it. There's lots of ideas and this sort of thing, but what it amounts to is the white line. You have your hoof, and you have your outside wall, and then you have on the inside of that it's like, I'm gonna call it like a shock absorber. It's fibrous, and that's your white line that you see, and that's usually where your nails go. But that's the buffer, that's the shock system from the coffin bone to the outer wall. So it goes like this. Here's your outer wall. Here's your coffin bone here. And then you have your sole. So there's a fibrous material between the outer wall and the coffin bone. And that fibrous material helps the coffin bone stay in place with the hoof wall. But when this starts getting separated and we start getting the lamination starting to separate, then the coffin bone starts rotating and we end up with a crippled animal that can barely walk, and they're usually put down. And I wish I could tell you I had it. I have in the past I've used pine tar and linseed oil together, and I've packed it in a rubber shoe, hoping to be able to, with some other drugs, hoping, antibiotics, hoping to do something with it. And of course, I sure haven't figured it out, and neither has a lot of other people. It's a horrible way to go. And the best thing I can tell y'all is, like anything else, number one, when you have your mules and donkeys, always trim them every 8 weeks, no matter what. Because here's what happens. I personally believe that all the packed up of mud and manure and things like this gets packed up in there, and then we get an infection, and then we start getting the breakdown of it. I don't really know. I just know that, like, I've never had it on my ranch, or have I ever had it with people that are that brought me mules to train. I just know other people have had it, and it's usually always been in the wet, nasty parts of the country, where there's a lot of moisture. So short, folks, especially during the winter time. Shorter the better. In high and heavy mud, shorter the better, because you don't want that mud stuff to pack up in there.
Very good. I appreciate that. We got a few more folks who have been joining us here. We've got Jack from Johannesburg, Michigan, checking in, starting to see some velvet bucks running around. What's the velvet buck?
Well, what it amounts to is animals with antlers, which is what that deer is. They lose their antlers every year. And when they lose those antlers, then new ones grow. And because actually the antler is actually hair. So what happens then, as the antler grows, it looks like a smooth velvet on the outside, but it's just the end of the hairs, and then it gets hard, and then the bucks, they go and they start coming into rut and this sort of thing, and they start rubbing their horns on the trees, sharpening them up, shining them up, and letting the girls know that they're around.
All right. I did not know that. Well, thank you so much, Jack, there. We're glad that you're here hanging out, giving us a report from up north there. Tracy?
And Jack, if you need me to come up and help you take care of some of them trespassers, I'd be happy to help you out.
There you go. Let's see. We got Tracy watching from Queensland, Australia. Awesome to have you here, Tracy. We've got Suze joining from the Netherlands. We've got Karen from California. We've got Sherry from Pensacola, Florida. We've got Eric saying, thanks, guys, for all the great info. Eric Palmer there. We've got Barney Oldfield and his mammoth donkey bear from Hesperus, Colorado. Jerry Camburn saying, hi, guys. In Phoenix this week, it's hot. Rope burn is doing good. Thank you.
Rope burn. Yeah. Hey, I think Eric's got a clinic. Don't Eric have a clinic coming up here pretty quick?
He does. We had someone pop in a couple weeks ago saying, hey, can we tell folks about Eric's clinic? Eric, if you've got a clinic coming up, go ahead and put it in the comment section there so folks can know, so we can make sure that they know that they can come out and join you for that clinic. Let's see here. We've got Roxana from Texas. Jack says, I've made my own surcingle out of 2 cinch straps. I haven't put it on my mule yet. Do you think it will work? I plan on using it with the Mule Riders martingale.
Well, yeah, as long as if you've got some rings sewed in there and this sort of thing, Jack, good for you that you were able to make it up and do it. Big thing you want to be concerned about is the straps themselves could wear some hair. That's why I put that wool felt between the strap and sewed it into the strap so that it gives them some buffer, because a lot of times when they're pulling with their string and pulling against the bit, then it'll rub on their back. So just want to, or maybe throw a saddle pad underneath there. That'll help too.
Very good. We've got Albert from Arkansas saying, we have a new Jack donkey baby. How exciting, Albert. That's great. Feel free to send us any pictures you want. What'd you say there, Steve?
Send pictures.
Send pictures. We want to see those pictures. We got Mark Miller watching, says still in New Mexico, and we've got Jeremy watching from Houston. So we've got a full house today. Lots of different folks hanging out with us and spending a little bit of time. I've got my next question here. Let me bring it up. I'm trying a new setup here today, Steve. No one can see it but me. And so I'm trying to get used to it, trying to always up my game just a little bit with the live streaming thing. And so I'm having a hard time getting all my stuff together.
I've had a lot of great feedback, Dave, of people with emails and some little just texting saying, hey, keep up the good work with the show once a week. We really look forward to it, and getting answers to the questions and this sort of thing. So it's been fun for people. They're able to learn, Dave, and hear things. And, it's really good to just hear some of the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
That's how you finally get it, you know. That's why we don't tire of saying it over and over again. If we have to say it 1,000 times, that's okay.
Yeah.
Let's just get it. And what's other thing is fun, Dave, is people have said they were like this one guy said he was at a campground and these people just couldn't get their horse loaded.
Yeah. Couldn't
load it. So he says, hey, I'd like to try to help you out. They said, well, we've been doing this for several hours. And he said, well, let me see that horse a minute. And he put the come along hitch, moved that horse around for just a few steps. He said, Steve, 5 minutes later, that horse couldn't wait to jump in that trailer. I said, 5 minutes? He says, yeah. He says, people looked at me and said, who are you?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, hey, that's what it's all about, Dave. Doggone it all. I want people to use this stuff, and then, 10 years from now, be able to use it and say, by golly, I learned it 10 years ago, or whatever, And one of these days, I'm not going to be here, and so by golly, let's just keep on carrying the torch. You know?
Absolutely. Well, I got our first question that's been sent in here. This one's from Tony. Says, I've been searching for an excellent trail mule for quite some time and no luck. Last summer we rescued 4 mini donkeys. First time we ever been around donkeys. The more we're around them, the more we love them. That being said, I was thinking maybe I should be thinking about a mammoth donkey. I've only rode horses. I ride with 3 ladies that ride with mules, and I've had horses for 13 years, and he's the only one I've rode. He has taken good care of me. I get nervous thinking about moving on to a different animal, but I'm not ready to give up by no means. I'm 51, so I'd love to find an animal that will last my riding days. Would love to hear your input on my situation.
Oh yeah, it is tough finding a good animal, folks, and one that's going to match up with you, whether it be horse, mule, or donkey, but especially with mules. And mules right now are quite pricey. I've was mentioning to some people the other day that I know about this one mule that just sold for $12,000. Oh, they said, oh, that's a lot of money. And I said, would you work for 2 years for $12,000? Think about that. And all the feed and water, yada, yada. But let's go on. That donkey is going to be a good choice. Just get yourself a good mammoth donkey, whether it be a Jenny, or whether it be a Jack, either one, make sure that the boys are all gelded. You want to make sure you get that done, because a breeding Jack can be a handful, tough. But, oh yeah, get yourself a saddle donkey. You won't look back. You'll wonder why you didn't do it 20 years ago.
That's good. Eric just chimed in. Eric said July 27 and 28 at Horsebreakers Unlimited in Dewey, Arizona. All participant spots are filled up. Spectators are still welcome. No concessions on site, so be sure to bring what you need. So there you go. Eric's got a link there to. Eric has a link there to the Horsebreakers Unlimited LLC page. You can go there, check out more, and contact Eric, of course. Eileen says, great story. She loved hearing that story there. Jeremy's got a question. He says, I have a mule that was kind of wild when I first got him. He has calmed down a lot over the last 2 months while spending time with him. Took him to a trainer to make sure he would be safe when trained to ride. Trainer was making great progress. Then we went to check out everything, and the mule went to bucking all the way across the pasture and then back across. It was when he was trying to force him to turn right. We're thinking something is wrong with his teeth. Plan to get the teeth looked at. Steve, what do you think?
Well, them turns always tell me that, let's get the teeth squared away first. But what usually always is said to me is he riding the breeching? That's number one. And number two, it sounds like to me that the saddle was too far forward. So when he went to move, he hit that scapula and boom. The majority of the time, when one's turning to the right or to the left, and it's usually always to the left, but this one's to the right, when they're making their turn and all of a sudden blow up, it's because their scapula hit that saddle. So check, number one, get the teeth done. That's good. That's always a good deal. But number two, was he riding a breeching? Number three, was that rear cinch up tight? And number four, how far back was that saddle? That's really, really important. Dave, these mules and donkeys, they don't buck unless they're being hurt.
Yeah.
Unless something's just flat going wrong, they just don't. I've got that one video of colt starting, 5 people, all greenhorns. They don't know anything about starting colts, and none of them buggers buck. They have to be comfortable. Good for him for trying the teeth, but try those other things up there first. Let me know what you're doing.
So he's got a follow-up here. He says, He says, how do we determine if the mule will always be wild and bucking, or if this is an animal we can continue working with and feel safe riding? The same mule has kicked 2 farriers. So I would imagine it's a little bit of, it's applying what you just talked about and then seeing what the results are there.
Yeah, Dave, these kind of mules like that, these farriers sometimes will pick up the foot wrong and they won't disengage the hindquarters. Remember, when you pick up a foot, you always bring it forward first toward the shoulder, then straight back and over to the left. That's how you pick up a back foot. And so that's not unusual for one to get hung up like that because that back leg is not disengaged. So that's that part. Now, going back, when he was being kicked, was it from a back leg? Was it front leg? How do you know anything about that as well? But let's go back. 6 months builds a foundation, folks. 6 months, not just 60 days or 90 days. 6 months builds a foundation. And so you can't just, the people try to hammer some of these animals. Now, what I used to do was, when in riding these mules and donkeys and stuff, I'd get an idea of the disposition of the people, and I'd get an idea of the disposition of the mule, and then I'd be training, and I'd make a decision, will this mule actually fit that person? And then make some decisions from there.
That's good. Folks, I put a link in the comments section. You can find to the foundation colt starting there. And then I also put a link in the comments section for picking up the back foot when you're having problems. Steve said how to pick up the back foot. It actually shows you how to do it. And it's not just, oh, yeah, it always goes real well. Here's how you do it. It's actually almost a 10-minute video of showing Steve working with the animal to get him to give the back foot. Jeremy says, yes, there was a britchin. So there you go.
Okay, good deal. If there's a possibility, if you want to send me a picture of the saddle on the mule all saddled up, I can tell you there's a lot of times there's a britchin, but it's not adjusted upright. Now that's another thought. So, of course, it was too late to know where the saddle was on the scapula, unless he happens to know. But otherwise, try it again. Put him in a round pen, put the saddle on him, make sure everything's set right, and have him go around in a circle in that round pen, go off to the right, and see if he blows up again. Maybe that'll tell you that happened to be that when that rider turned him off to the right, that he sure enough had the saddle too far forward.
There you go. So next question we got, this one comes in on Facebook from John, which first off, before I read that, Jeremy, thank you so much for being here week after week. Jeremy's given us a lot of emails, been in communication with us quite a bit over the last 6-8 months, and it's really great to have you here. So thank you for taking a few minutes. Come hang out with us. We appreciate it. John's got the question here. He says, we're working with our pack string and getting our mules trained up for fall. We seem to have 2 repeating issues. One likes to come up on the side and won't stay in line on a 2-track. He's fine on a single track. Another sits back on the lead rope and pulls until he tires. He has the speed and gets along fine with the saddle mule he's following. How do we get him to come up and not drag? So those are the 2 questions right there. The riding in double, 2-track, won't do 2-track, but will do 1, and then lead rope pulls back.
Okay, so we go back to the lead rope pulls back. Come along hitch, come along hitch, come along hitch. And then a properly adjusted halter. No chains, no so-called mule halters. Don't do that to your mule. Don't do that. But come along hitch. Put the come along hitch on, jump in the saddle, lead that mule around. Jerk that mule around a little bit. Kind of jump your horse out a little bit. Make that mule having to lean back. And when he does, that come along hitch is sure enough going to bite him. Now let's go back. I said from the saddle. Do your groundwork first from the ground. Get your come along going good to where your mule's responding nice and light, and then go in the saddle. Okay, now, the one on the back that's wanting to get over to one side or the other, there again, he's not responsible for the halter. That halter doesn't mean anything to him, because if he went off to the right, that knot, if it was adjusted correctly on the nose, would hit him in the nose and make him uncomfortable, that he'd want to come back off the left, or left go to the right. So I would say your halter is not adjusted correctly, number one. And number two, you need to put them on the come along hitch and work them in the come along to start getting them softened up where they respect that halter.
There you go. So I put a link in the comment section to the ground foundation starting kit, which has the come along rope, the adjustable rope halter, and then Steve's video, Problem Mule, Building a New Foundation. Those three together have been three of our most popular products. That's just because they flat out work. Eric just chimed in again. He said another clinic he's got is August 9, 10, and 11 in Alpine, Arizona at Lucky A Ranch. All proceeds benefit the rescue. We'll have fun show, trail ride, tax swap. Will be great fun in cool weather for a great cause. So you can check out on Eric Palmer's page there, get more information. One person who I forgot to welcome was Yolanda. Yolanda's hanging out with us, Netherlands. So Yolanda and Suze make us go international just about every single week, and we love it. Absolutely love it. Beth chimed in from New Hampshire, says, "Hi, Steve and Dave. I've watched After the Wreck video and learned so much. It's a great tool. Thank you." So, Beth, we really appreciate you saying something. Good. Thank you so much. Dina is asking a question here. Dina, how's it going? Says, what is the difference between a mini and a mammoth donkey? I want a donkey one day. We have horses and mules, but I haven't owned a donkey and been around them much. I'm not sure what they are most useful for besides pets. I'm still trying to convince my husband to let me get one. So I'll say first and foremost, between the mammoth and the mini, it's the size. So the mammoth is going to be, 16 hand high and higher, and then the mini is going to be, real small. Almost you got to be down on your knees to work with them. But I'll answer that question. Steve, will you answer the question about the disposition and overall, experience of owning a mammoth versus the experience of owning a mini?
Well, they can both have good minds and they can have sorry minds. So the way it goes is mammoth, then standard, then mini. So it goes those three. And 14 hands roughly is what most people like to ride. Now, 56 inches is your mammoth donkey, 56 inches. And so that pretty much dictates people. They go by inches rather than hands, unfortunately. So the only reason you'd want a mini is if you wanted something to chew the grass in your front yard, or if you had a big old bunch of grass. The problem is they found her pretty easy. Or the favorite thing I like to do with a mini is hook them up to a cart and take the grandkids for a ride.
Yeah, there you go. We've had folks actually chime in the past saying, hey, our mini's good for kids, and that's what Steve says. He's like, hey, they're great. Hook them up to a cart, take the kids for a ride. They're going to absolutely love it. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of perspective there, Dina. I know that it can kind of be, you want to get it right, so you're doing the right thing. You're here, you're learning. Steve will say it over and over. We'll get questioned probably once every 3 or 4 weeks saying, what's the first thing I should do before I get my mule? And Steve's answer is educate yourself. Learn as much as you can. And so we're here showing up, telling you what has worked for Steve over the past 4 decades. If it works for you, do it. If you found something else that works for you, you could go with that. Here's the deal. You want to make sure whatever you do and whichever direction you go with training and correction, that you're not causing problems that are going to show up. You correct one issue, but you cause 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 problems that show up 6 months down the road. So that's one of these deals where you want to make sure that you're getting as much information as possible and you make the best decision based upon your mule, based upon what's worked in the past, and based upon what you're trying to do for the future. So that's good there. Let's see here. Dory says, love those caricatures behind Steve. Steve, tell us about those real quick.
Oh, these are pretty unique. These things, these are caricatures of cartoons of people that, like the guy on this side here, you can see he's really happy. He's got a big smile on his face and got his chinks on and looks like a cowboy, but his mule is really unhappy. You can see the ears are pinned back, nose is sticking out. sucking up his tail, and you can see the saddle is sitting right on his scapula, and there's no breeching or anything like that, and the back cinch is hanging all loose. So there's a happy rider, but an unhappy mule. Now, the one in the middle here is a happy mule. You can see the old mule's just prancing right along, happy, and you can see he's got a breeching and this sort of thing, saddles all in place, and a little short, fat cowboy. I wonder who that is. And then so that's a happy mule with Steve Edwards tack, an unhappy mule with whatever they found tack, you know. And the last one over here, huh?
Unhappy mule with horse tack.
Yeah. And then the last one over here, can you see that one? That one has a bit where the shanks go drag the ground. So they're almost 3 foot long. and the caption on this is, so I can stop him now. So everybody thinks it's the bit. It's not, you know. So these caricatures I've used in advertisements in the past, and one of my clients, and also very good friends, by the way, she's an artist, and she did these several years ago, and they're beautiful. So she done these specials for me, and it's a perfect place to hang them up. But there it is. It's a lot of fun to have people that have that type of talent share it with you.
Yeah,
you know?
Good eye, Dory. Good eye spotting that. You know, Steve's been sitting there for a while. We've had several broadcasts with those in the background, and Dory, you're the first one to bring it up. So well done there. Let's see here. Next question. Oh, Jeremy chimed back in. He says picking up the front leg and was kicked by the back leg. So he's saying on his previous question, I was picking up the front. I wound up getting kicked by the back. So that's my bad, Jeremy. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay.
So Mark Miller says, I want to thank you all so much. A good teacher is hard to find. My life has been so much easier since I found y'all. Tired of learning the hard way. Oh, my goodness. I think we may have to put that on the website.
There you go.
That's good right there. Thank you so much, Mark. We love hearing that. John Gibson following up says, awesome. We'll work at it tomorrow. And by the way, all 4 mules, no horses for us, exclamation point. We love hearing that, John. Thank you so much. Lucky A Ranch says, hey, Eric Palmer, can't wait for the clinic. Will be so much fun. A great get-together event. I want to welcome also Leslie and Aloha Kirk. They're watching over on YouTube. We had a little bit of YouTube problems early on, but they're able to get on. So thank you guys for watching, which is a great opportunity for me to just kind of reintroduce myself and you, Steve. My name's Dave. This is Steve. Every single week we get together just to talk mules and donkeys for about an hour. And so we've had a good conversation, a couple stories this week so far. We've got plenty of time for your question. And so that really leads me into the 3 things that we asked. First, go ahead, introduce yourself. Make sure that we know that you're watching. Make sure that we know that you're here. Life is so much better in community. It's no fun when you're doing it all by yourself, especially when it comes to these mules and donkeys. You can get frustrated pretty quick, which is why we're so grateful to have such an awesome community of folks who are diligent to show up week after week after week. So introduce yourself, where you're watching from. The next thing is we ask that you ask any and every question that comes to your mind. There's no dumb question. There's no question we've been asked too many times. We want every single question that comes our way. I'll tell you what, I've asked some of the most basic, quote unquote, dumb questions, and I've learned a heck of a lot from it. So we want you to ask as many questions as you can. And then the third thing is that you just share the broadcast. You can share this broadcast. Heck, share anything on the Queen Valley Mule Ranch Facebook page so we can get in front of folks who feel alone, who feel desperate, who feel like they have ruined their mule, who feel like they are doing everything wrong, or feel like their mule is not worth saving. Their mule cannot be taught. They can't get it done. We want to get in front of those people and say, hey, that's not the case. You can whip that come-along rope on that mule, pull them into the trailer within 5 minutes. You don't have to have someone professional out there doing it. You can learn how to do it. So let's see here. We've got David saying late but listening. David Pengelly right there. Some Ask, Tell, Demand coffee. I'll put a link in the comment section. We've got Kualani from Aloha, San Fran. Love the show. We've got Donna from Texas. Jack says, my mule hip is higher than her withers. I use all your tacks, saddle pad cinches, breeches. How do I determine if I need a new saddle pad for a bigger, higher hipped mule?
Well, if you got a high hip, then that's confirmation. And when it comes down to conformation, there's not really a permanent fix. Usually those kind of mules are really good in a wagon because nobody's sitting in them. Because the problem is this: the back of the hip is going like this, and it's hitting on the saddle, and it pushes that saddle forward really fast. So the best thing you can do is just say, okay, Steve, I can see that the hip is high, and I see the wither is low. Then we need to put what I call my downhill hip pad. And boy, Dave, we've been seeing a lot of this downhill hip stuff the past 3 years.
We have, and it's one of those deals where for the longest time, I mean, at least as far as I knew, we didn't really have anything. The second that we made that, folks started finding us saying, thank you very much. I've been looking for something like this. And it's actually been a lot more common to find mules with the downhill hips. Of course, there'll be some folks who think, oh, what's wrong with my mule? Oh, this, that, and kind of feel like, oh, maybe I did something wrong. You know what? Sometimes they're just born with that conformation. And so that downhill hip, it doesn't correct the hip, and it's never going to be the same as the level that you want, but it does a good job of compensating for that downhill hip. You'll still want to make sure to have a saddle with Steve's mule bars on there. Steve's bars, someone can say it's got mule bars, but you don't know that it's got mule bars unless you rip that whole saddle apart and look at it, and at that point you don't have a saddle. So you want to make sure that you still use the right saddle, the right tack, so it doesn't go sliding forward on you. But I just put a link in the comment section to a picture diagram of a downhill hip. It'll show you with circles and arrows exactly what that downhill hip looks like. And if you want to send a text message to Steve, 602-999-6853, and it's on the website. You can do that, and Steve will look at the text message, and he'll send you a message right back saying, yeah, it looks like a downhill hip to me. But good for you asking there about the downhill hip, because your mule is going to thank you, and you're going to be happy you did it too, right, Steve?
Oh, boy. Oh, you're especially going to feel good because, folks, that saddle wants to go forward anyway. It's the way these mules are made up. And it's hard for horsemen to get that in their mind that this saddle is going forward. Now, on a horse, the saddle goes backwards. I'll never forget, I was in a race with Ross Knox, the head packer at the Grand Canyon, and we was at Bishop packing, and it was just packing one single animal and then riding one and then taking off. And I remember I was ahead of Ross, which doesn't happen too often. And I thought, maybe I'd cut back a split second or two by not putting our breast collar on. By the time I got back in the ring, come running around the circle, got back in the ring, my saddle was almost laying on that mule's hip. I mean, on that horse's hip. I was riding a horse, and that was part of the
problem
run
there.
Yeah, and part of the problem. No, it was part of what they want us to do as far as the rules go: ride a horse, pack a mule. So, but you had to have a breast collar. Without the breast collar, man, that saddle went back, and it did. And I could have been bucked off pretty serious.
Yeah. Get that right tack in place. So good follow-up question there. We've got, Jack, good follow-up question. Beth's got a question, says, I meant to ask this earlier. I've used Steve's technique of rubbing the bars of the mouth to get his mouth to open for the bit. My mule does that, but when he continues to yawn for about a minute, have you ever seen that? I actually think he enjoys it.
Oh, they enjoy it, you betcha. And yawning, yeah, that happens a lot with these guys. It's so relaxing for them, Dave. People just, it blows them away when I show them how much comfortable and comfort you're doing with your animal there. And I use this middle finger here, and I rub on that bar, and I rub on it. And like she said, he got so comfortable, he started yawning. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I see that a lot.
That's very good. Let's see. We've got over on YouTube, we got a question coming in. We got a good, healthy audience over on YouTube today. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. Western Outdoors sends the message in, says, what should I feed my mules in the backcountry while I'm hunting? Now that is a question I don't think we've ever gotten. What do I feed my mules when I'm out in the backcountry hunting?
Well, for one thing, you want to make sure that it's okay to graze your mules, because there's a lot of ranchers that have the grazing rights, and we don't have the grazing rights back in there. So what I usually always feed is pellets. That's pretty much it. I take rock salt back with me, and I take pellets, and that's what I feed. When you go back into a lot of these places, Dave, you have to have weed-free hay, and it has to be certified, so it gets to be pretty expensive. The downside is it gets back in there, and they don't cover it up, and you get those afternoon showers, and your hay starts getting wet. Then you become a problem. So I feed. You can find a good hay cube, which will work good. But the other thing I do is extremely important, and that is electrolytes. When you get ready to jump them mules in that trailer, them horses, them donkeys, and you're going down the road for several hours, make sure they got electrolyte. Take a tube of electrolyte, give them each about 10 cc's of it, and when they come out of that trailer, they'll be thirsty. That's one thing. Make sure they got salt. That's another thing. Take granulated salt and put it in with your grain. And hear me well on this. When you feed grain, you feed whole oats, not crimped oats, whole oats. So that way it builds energy, and you don't have to worry about them being silly. And then you can also put that rock salt in there, and they'll get their salt.
That's good. I don't think we've ever had that question before. That's a really good one. Thank you so much.
Well, now, and I might also add
Yeah.
that if you are going to be grazing them, and you know that it's okay to graze, like in the forest allotments and this sort of thing, still a lot of these allotments are still blown to the ranchers, but that's another story. Always 1 foot hobble. So hobble a back foot back off to a tree. About 60 foot is my maximum length, or to a log. I never do a front foot because the back foot can get hung up in the rope and get themselves a rope burn. But always hobble a back foot. Always, always, always take the halter off. I can tell you I've been on a couple hunt trips where the foot got hung up in the halter, and the mule ended up killing themselves.
There you go. So good question there on feed Western Outdoors. The next question that we got here, this one comes from Brad, says, I am new to mules, just got one. He's a 3-year-old and was started, got on him for the first time, and he blew up. I inspected the rafters, and I am going to quick for him.
That don't sound good.
Does not sound good. So what does he mean by blown up?
Well, what happens is when these animals, again, they feel like they're being hurt, and so they just completely blow up, go to bucking, sometimes go to squealing, kicking. They're just their mind is not there. Only thing they can think of is they're being hurt, and that's usually what it is. You know, when you have an animal blow up and go to bucking, they feel like they're being hurt, and it could be that the person tightened up the cinches too tight. It could be that maybe there was something wrong with the saddle. Could be that they used billets on the back of the saddle, which doesn't allow for a smooth transition of the weight to the cinch. It could be lots of things. But basically, a blow up means very few people can hold on to that wreck because the mule done had enough of whatever was going on.
So he's concerned he's going too quick. Would you go ahead and go back to ground foundation training, get out that come along rope, get control of the animal on the ground, go through, several months of training before you start to try to get back up again? Because the last thing we want here is an injury.
Yeah. Well, number one, Dave, go get the teeth floated. Go make sure the teeth are good. Let's make sure the mechanical is out of the way so that when we do go to train, we're good. So get the teeth floated and have them check out the back. There are so many ill-fattened saddles and people putting saddles on incorrectly. We've got a lot of backs that are in bad shape. So go see a chiropractor, go see a dentist, and make sure that is fixed first.
All right. Very good. All right. Next question here. Let me get back to this page. And folks, I've been putting some links in the comment section. So if you've heard Steve talk about something, a downhill hip pad, Grass Founder, things like that. You can go ahead and check it out in the comment section, and the links are there. Dory says, great stories on the pictures. Our pleasure, Dory. Kualani says, my mule also bucks when his shoulder withers have any pressure. So what are we looking at there if the shoulder withers are getting pressure and the mule goes to bucking?
Well, what it amounts to is they can have the cinch too tight so that the front of the saddle is down, the back of the saddle is up. Then that saddle goes forward and hits that scapula. Remember that fibrous material on the top of that scapula I was telling you about? That right there is when it starts getting sore, the one veterinarian told me it's kind of like having your fingernail being removed. Can you imagine that? Ooh, that's a bad feeling. Fingernail being removed as far as feeling how that scapula starts getting bent over. That's tough.
You told me, we brought in and you said it's that at the peak it's about as thin as a piece of paper here.
Yep.
And then what happens is when the saddle starts to hit on it, it can start to roll over. And imagine how let me get that there. It starts to roll over like that.
Yes.
To the point where it could even break off. It's not good.
Yeah. Exactly. So, let's look at the mechanical first. Let's look at getting the teeth floated. Let's look at the back, make sure that's all in good shape. Then let's look at the saddle, make sure that the saddle is being put on there properly. And then after that's been put on properly and you got a good breeching on there, then the next thing is make sure the breast collar, that it's right. And then the saddle should be basically straight and flush. If not, then we can go to the saddle and go to that as the next part.
Yeah, very good. So we've got a couple more folks joining us over on YouTube. We've got Myra from Ojai, California, and then we've got Susan Henderson. And Susan's got a question. Susan says, recently my mule braces when I try to pick up her left front leg. Once up, she stands fine. Other three legs, she is good. When I stretch both front legs before mounting, she is good with both legs. So what could it be here that has given her trouble with the left front leg?
Well, it could be any number of things there, Dave. A lot of people think it's good to stretch them in the front leg before they mount them. And I haven't seen that be a situation I'd want to do every time. You might want to have a good look at that scapula, maybe have an x-ray done of it and make sure it's okay, because those scapulas really easy can be hurt by saddles improperly adjusted. That might be a thought. That'd be the only thing I can come up with, Dave, as long as she's picking the foot up correctly.
Let's do this. How about we, Susan, how about you get some video of you going to pick up the foot and then send that video to us and let Steve take a look at your technique, take a look at how you're going about doing it. Since it's just that single leg, there might be some other things to look out there for too, but we want to get you some answers. And so, so we'll help you as best we can. So go ahead and send that in. The next question we've got, this one's from Kulani, says, my question is, my mule seems to love me a lot, but once in a while, he will push me over if he really wants to have his way to the hay or the grass. He does it slowly at first, puts me off balance, and then gently pushes me right over. He's so smart. It's like a surprise ninja move. How can I stop him quickly?
Kick him in the shin. That's if you don't have the come along on him, you take the edge of your boot and you kick him right in the shin. Don't slap him in the face, folks. A lot of people do. They smack him or they hit him in the head. Then you got some head shy problems. Kick him in the shin. Anytime if they're within an arm's length, if they're closer than an arm's length from you, then you make sure they get out of your space. Make sure of that. But otherwise, when they get in that close, take the edge of your boot and hit them a few times. They'll learn to their space. And then go ahead and tap on them. As they're moving away from you, you say back, 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 and tap on them legs with the side of your boots. That'll make them uncomfortable and don't want to be in your space.
when one of the subordinate mules gets up near the herd leader will turn around. It doesn't kick the shins. Will go right after the nose. Go right after and just try to start biting and making contact. At least that's what I've seen. So it
Well,
seems like. What's that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've seen a little bit of that, but I've seen them more go toward the shoulder or the neck,
Yeah.
getting a bite from that.
There you go. I guess I got a little one off there when I was up at the Andrada Ranch. That was
Yeah.
a heck of a lot of fun. But they get pretty brutal with one another.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
see here. This next question comes in from Donna. Says, "Are there mules that just can't be tamed? I rescued 3-year-old feral, not just wild flat feral. I tried for a year, didn't get farther than just barely touching her. I gave her to a mule man that was highly recommended. He pushed her too fast and hard. She did just what I said she would. She completely lost it. Threw the guy on him." Then grabbed him and threw him. The man put her down. I'm still very upset about the whole thing. That is upsetting, Steve. What do you have to say there? I know that this is something that a lot of folks, they want to save these mules. They want to get them from these kill pens. They want to get them, rescue them, try and rehabilitate them. There's been a lot of folks who have had some success, but it sounds like there's kind of a lot of folks who haven't had that success. What do you have to say there?
Yeah, well, it's awful tough to hear they had to put him down. But I tell you, Dave, of course, I didn't know what all happened there, so I can't completely make a decision
Yeah.
there firmly. But I'd rather have one put down than be out there in the public and hurt someone. You get some of these animals, they're flat scared of their own shadow. I got some sheep down here, some Barbados sheep that are also I got something other paint anyway, and Jess, he goes down there and we work them. But anyway, I've got one sheep that doesn't even want to come out of the corral. She jumps and scared to death, like I'm going to eat her, and she's just that way. So going back to this mule, you can have some that can just flat be an outlaw, and sometimes pulling a trigger would be the best thing. But I'd have to see it to make the final decision.
Yeah, it was. We were at the Andrada Ranch. I brought my family. I've got 3 boys, 7, 5, and 2. And Isaiah, my oldest, he loves animals, loves animals. And he overheard us talking about kill pens and putting animals down. And to him, he wasn't upset or anything. He was just curious. He's like, "Why do you have to kill a mule?" And so Steve, I'm sure you remember this, but Steve brought him over and said, "Isaiah, I love mules. I love animals. I love all animals. But I really have a heart for mules, and I want them to be safe, and I want them to be taken care of, and I want the other mules around them to be safe and taken care of." And so sometimes it's better to have one be put down when it's going to keep them safe, and they're not going to get into trouble. They're not going to hurt themselves further. And it's going to keep other people and other mules and animals around them safe as well. And Isaiah seemed to get that. He, okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah.
But it is one of those deals where sometimes it has to be done, but you kind of need all of the information before you say, "Hey, yeah, that was the right thing to do" or not. So yeah, I think we're best not commenting on that. But just saying that I do think that there are times when it winds up being the best thing, and there are times when maybe there could have been something that you could have done.
Yeah. Well, you can even see them on YouTube where these animals. One guy laid this horse down, and he made a fatal mistake. As soon as he did it, I thought, "What are you doing?" He come to the front of that horse rather than from behind. When you lay one down, you don't come in the front. Not only can you get pawed with all 4 feet, but like this horse did, this horse reached up and grabbed him and bit him. I mean, it tore this man up. So, and some of these animals, there was one that's really famous that Buck Brannaman had done. And you can see the guy walk out to put a halter on, and all of a sudden this horse just attacked him and tore him up. And Buck Brannaman said, "Put the horse down. There's no fixing it. An outlaw's an outlaw."
Yeah. All right, we got a couple questions here before we're done with this week's show. We've got Barney saying, "Barney Oldfield, sorry not a mule or donkey question. Just wanted to share watching an elk herd on my property last night, and 4 cows were babysitters of 14 calves, daycare center." That's got to be a lot of fun.
That's got to be a lot of fun, hey. And I don't know, you probably don't recognize that name, Barney Oldfield.
I don't.
Let me tell you, that is a famous, famous name. I keep meaning to ask Barney if he's any relation to the Barney Oldfield, who had the first world speed record, land speed record in the world, and
Wow.
he had that speed record. He was,
Wow.
he was, he was well known for his racing. So I'd be interested to know if Barney, if that was him or not.
Let us know, Barney. Brad Garner says, thanks, guys. Brad, it's our pleasure. Yolanda says, most chiropractors are not known with mules, well, at least here in the Netherlands. And so is it hard to find a good chiropractor who knows, understands, and can work on mules?
Yeah, it is, Dave. It's just like anything else. You can have some folks that have a fair knowledge, and you get some others that are natural and can flat do it, and do a nice job.
Yeah.
I can watch some of these guys and tell you if they're doing right or doing wrong, but you'll know it.
Yeah.
Especially once you ride the animal. It's amazing to see the difference in them.
Yeah. Okay, last question that we've got here. This one comes from Western Outdoors, so a follow-up question. Says, another question. I bought an experienced mule that has been packed and rode all over Wyoming and Idaho. While riding the mule, we jump deer, and he gets nervous and wants to turn around the trail. Also, certain logs he's scared of. Is this a trust issue for the mule?
No, it's just that he has, I've seen these animals raised, like up in Montana on the DJ bar, these animals raised on the side of a mountain. They see rattlesnakes, they see elk, they see deer, see all that stuff. Folks, flight and fright is part of these animals' lives. It's the way it is. Now, my wife can be in the kitchen working away. She's all in her world and just going away. And she knows I'm in the house. And all of a sudden, I come around the corner and say, honey, ah!
Yeah.
You've all seen it, Well, it's the same thing with these animals. We have to remember that their eyes are farther apart. And they got a right brain and a left brain, so they can't put the two together and say, oh, that's a log. Well, when they happen to catch it just right with their right eye and they see the shadow and stuff, they swear him down that was a monster, I've had folks say they're going to desensitize their animals, and you know where this is going, Folks, ain't no such thing as desensitizing. Flight and fright is part of life. That's the way it is. You can, unless you got an elephant, you're not going to desensitize them to an elephant, okay, when they come around. And I tell you again, at the World Championships, they'd have 25, 30,000 people up in the audience. I didn't have 25, 30,000 people to desensitize with when I come there to World Championships. Wow.
Yeah. I was editing a video and heard you talking about the desensitizing. You go, how many of y'all got a mountain lion you can desensitize with?
Yep.
How many of y'all have a bear you can desensitize with? One of the things that we've talked about here that just makes so much sense is if you want to have control, if you want to have any hope of having control in the saddle, you want to have control on the ground. And everybody wants to talk saddle, 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 and riding, riding, riding. And it's a lot of fun. I've been the beneficiary of riding animals that have had good foundation training, animals that have good disposition. Put my boys up on there, had a good time. I haven't had to put in the hard work for a few times that I've ridden. But if you want to ride, that's the thing that tends to make the most sense to me is make sure you've got control on the ground with all the different things that could scare them, and you know how to react on the ground, because when you get in the saddle, it's a whole nother story.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, boy.
Well, hey, folks, that's it. We've done another week. An hour just flies by. Hey, folks, if you are enjoying these, and maybe you haven't been watching since the very beginning, of course, that was last year. That was 2018. We've been taking all of our past broadcasts, and we are releasing them, re-releasing them, as podcasts. And so I put a link in the comments section here, both on Facebook and YouTube, and it's telling me that it's having problems on Facebook. Well, Facebook's having problems. What else is new? I'll get it in there. But it's podcast.muleranch.com. You can go, and every week we are releasing re-releasing a new episode that we did last year. And so you can catch up. You can listen on the go, listen on Apple Podcasts, listen on Google Google Podcasts. You can listen on Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, Amazon Music, anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, you can listen there. So just go to podcast.muleranch.com. I'll try to get it here in the Facebook comment section. But you subscribe there and you can listen. And so you can take us with you all week long. And then next week, come back and ask questions. So, Steve, anything you want to say before we're all finished up with this week here?
No, just got to remember next week I'm going to bring something. I'm going to show you all something really unique. Y'all going to like this.
It's going to be very good. You know, Steve never rests on his laurels. He's always looking for ways to make things better. Yes. Always looking for ways to improve, even after 40 years, right, Steve?
That's right. I like happy mules, you know, and I love it when people are trying so hard to make their animals happy. And folks, you know, it really, it's work. It really is. It's not easy, but end result is worth it. And you can look around, you can say, I did it. Because so many of these trainers, they rely on what they've kind of learned from the horses. And they're pretty fair horse trainers, but they're not donkey and mule people.
Yep. And there's a big difference there, and that's why we show up every single week. Hey, folks, my name's Dave. This is Steve. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Be sure to go check out Steve's website, muleranch.com. There's a lot of awesome educational articles. There is so much free content. As a matter of fact, how much free content is there? Well, we've got 5, sometimes 6 people working on taking everything that we're creating and getting it up onto Steve's website so that you can download, you can watch, you can read, you can get exactly what you need at the moment you need it. You can find it, and we want you to take advantage of it. Sometimes you're going to need to buy a piece here or there, but you know what? We're going to be honest with you about when that moment comes. So go check it out. Get all the free videos, all the free articles, all the free training, and we'll see you here next week. Sound good, Steve?
Hey, sounds fun to me, man.
Awesome. We'll see you. Bye-bye, everyone. God bless. Take care.